And welcome to our final Good Morning Thailand for the week. Thank you very much for joining us again. And it's, as usual, a great opportunity to say good morning, Bill Barnett.
Hi, good morning. It's already Friday.
It is.
Thank God it's Friday, right?
Somehow we got here. And thank you very much to everybody for supporting the program during the week. Bill Barnett from C9 Hotel Works, of course. And we're going to get started straight away with our third guest today. Well, not our second guest, because I'm the... Anyway, all the way from Singapore, we'd like to say hello to Wayne Wee. He is the business development and co-founder of Breathnix. Hi, Wayne.
Hi, Wayne.
Hi team. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you very much. Now, Breathnix, we spoke about during the week, which is, I see it as a bit of a game changer for this whole COVID mess we're in at the moment. My first question to you about Breathnix was, were you waiting for a good virus to come along to test the technology, or did you come up with the technology actually to respond to COVID-19?
Yeah, that's a good question. So actually, prior to COVID-19, we were developing our solution for early detection of lung cancer. And this is based on 6+ years of research from our university, where it was part of our CEO, Dr. Jia Zhunan's PhD research, where she was doing a research in the breath analysis for early stage lung cancer. And it was only in 2020, during the pandemic period, where all the clinical trials for lung cancer were being suspended. And we actually repurposed the technology to detect COVID-19.
So actually it was a reaction to COVID as well, how you readapted the technology. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about Breathnix. Is Breathnix a private company? Is it a public enterprise? What is it exactly?
Yeah. So Breathnix is actually a spin-off from the National University of Singapore. So currently it is a private company.
All right. So how long have you actually been working on this particular research of breathalyzing to detect COVID-19? Did you get onto the technology and the opportunity pretty soon after it started?
For me, I only joined the team during the COVID period, like last year. But the technology itself was already being researched more than 6 years before this whole pandemic started. It was already being kind of researched by our CEO.
So what's the big idea? How does this adapt for COVID? What kind of technology are you using?
So for our technology, we are actually detecting the volatile organic compounds that is coming out through your breath. So we are not actually detecting the virus itself. We are kind of detecting your body's metabolic response to the virus in a very, very kind of trace level concentration that is coming out from your breath. So it's very precise. And we are able to detect it at the earliest form. We don't actually need to wait until you see kind of real symptoms, because the metabolic can be, the reaction can be very, very fast, and it can be very, very early. And so we are able to detect the early body response to the virus.
So is the idea that you would have these units at the airports in Singapore, indeed around the world, people get off the plane and they just stroll up, stick their nose into the breathalyzer, and within 1 minute they can be either allowed into the country or forwarded on for a confirmation test?
So for our test, ideally we are able to deploy it at high human traffic places. So as you mentioned, the airport is one, or it could be the land checkpoints as well, or perhaps even the screening centers. Wherever that you can see a couple of hundred coming in every day, I think that's the ideal place to put the system. And yes, for us, with a single breath, it is not through your nose, but actually through your mouth. So you just blow it, like exhale it with a normal exhalation. You don't need like additional strength. It's a very simple exhalation. So it just needs one simple breath of 3 seconds, and we are able to analyze that data.
I know with doing alcohol breath tests, you have to blow through the tube in an alcohol breath test. Usually you pass out. But this one, you just got to just breathe.
Yes. Just one exhalation will do, just one breath. Yeah.
When are we actually going to see Breathinexes in the market? When are we going to see them actually practically being used? What's the rollout plan for the product?
So firstly, we'll start out in Singapore because we have already worked closely with the ministry here in Singapore, and so I think you have heard that we are trying to do a pilot deployment at the Causeway right now. So we'll start to roll out and kind of figure out what's the best way and figure out all the logistics behind all of that. And the moment I think if it's going well and smooth, then we will start to deploy more of this system at the Causeway first, and then they will start to explore other applications such as at the airport or the screening centers, or they're also looking in the army camps and other kind of clinics around Singapore. So
clearly there's a great opportunity to monetize this. You could be selling these to any entry to any country, any checkpoints, any airports. This is a startup business. I mean, who's going to make money out of this?
So this is a startup. So actually we are in a stage of actually kind of fundraising as well to actually help to fast track this deployment for COVID, and also to kind of support our future R&D for the other diseases. So we are trying to ramp this up so that we can deploy not only in Singapore but in other countries as well. But in every country, we will need to go through kind of their regulatory procedure. So that will take some time to get it approved in the various countries.
How do we invest? I mean, do you guys take Bitcoin?
So just as a joke, we were thinking of even possibly doing our own NFT to kind of raise funds for helping us with the deployment.
Wayne, I was reading that it's got about a 95% efficacy rate at the moment of detecting COVID-19. Don't you really need it to get up to 100%? Otherwise, you're going to have perhaps 5% of people leaking through, starting a whole new pandemic.
Yeah. So for us, we are like the initial kind of detection tool. So it's similar to your antigen test, where you don't have like a 99.99 or 100% kind of accuracy. So how you use this is really as an initial point of detection, where you would screen all the travelers or all the subjects coming through, and then only if they test positive on the system, then they will do a confirmation PCR test. So that's a kind of similar to how a antigen test is being used right now. Yeah.
Any idea on cost yet? How much is it going to cost for one device?
Yeah, so we sell it as a package. So it comes with the machine and also X number of tests that you could use in 1 to 1.5 years kind of time frame. So for us, the cost that you're looking at is between 20 to as low as $5.
Okay, exactly. So,
Well, I can have one at home. Wake up each morning and just do a quick test. Wayne, congratulations on the development of this. As we said during the program on Wednesday, this could be a real game changer to help reopen the world faster, which is, of course, what we're all after. Just very quickly, before you go, can you tell us what the situation with COVID is in Singapore? You've got another flare up there.
Yeah, so I think, unfortunately, there was some community cases in Singapore, but I think it's pretty well managed in Singapore. So we are keeping the numbers low, and you can see in the next past few days and the next few days, you will see, I think that the numbers will start to drop back down to a single digit very soon. So I think the situation in Singapore is, I would say, is pretty well managed.
Yeah, it's great here too. Everything's fine in Thailand, no problem.
anyway, it's actually a great idea and great to see Singapore as a technology leader bringing world-class tech to Asia. Great thing.
Wayne, thank you very much for joining us on Good Morning Thailand. We appreciate your time. Good luck with the product. We'll certainly be following it, and have a good time in Singapore today.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Now time to check today's main news headlines. And starting off with the COVID situation, 34 COVID deaths today and 3,759 new infections. Phuket's governor has issued an English language letter urging COVID-19 compliance, clearly aimed at foreigners. Rayong province is closing 5 of its smaller tourism islands for 4 months. Taxi drivers may switch to ride-share apps with the new regulations that have now legalised the ride-sharing apps. And cannabis tourism may be a key to Thailand's recovery. And you can check all the latest news and headlines at thetiger.com. So that was really interesting hearing from Wayne Wee from Breathenix in Singapore, and we thank him for his time. Bill,
I want to invest, actually. I'm in.
You're going to put some of your Bitcoin in.
Absolutely.
Now, the second half of the program today is going to be questions, and we put the call out yesterday for people to send in questions. We've got quite a few of them here, so we will work through them. Let's start with this one from Critch, and he says, how does the Thai medical system compare to other Asian and Western countries? What are your thoughts?
I mean, in my experience, it's been quite positive. I think Thailand, in terms of world-class medical hub, you're not giving lip service to that, but certainly the hospitals in Thailand, you're able to get in quickly, you're able to have access to doctors in a reasonable manner. This continues to be a good medical hub as well. I think in terms of quality and in terms of facilities, it's excellent.
I find I've had some good interactions with the Thai medical system. There's a public system and there's a private system. The private hospitals can be a little bit expensive, probably comparable to other Western countries. But if you are working here, you get the free medical care from the public system. And whilst it sometimes may appear a bit chaotic or a bit Thai, it does work very efficiently. And the quality of the medical care, I think, is very, very good. Some things, some procedures they tend to do in a different way. They tend to use some different drugs for different treatments. They perhaps don't like to be questioned. The Thai doctors like to see themselves as, they're looking after you and they don't require any questions. So if you've done all the Google research before you go to the doctor and you tell the doctor what you've got, they don't usually respond well to that. But I would rate the universal medical care they have here, which is for everybody, it's free medical care for every Thai, as very good.
I think probably the one criticism, and many expatriates mention this, is there's more in terms of marketing. Certainly they are market-led products as well, and they do a good job at marketing at the end of the day, but that certainly is one of the criticisms many people do have on the Thai medical system in terms of the private sector, though.
Second question from Jack Bryan.
Most tourists and families will avoid Thailand from the UK due to insurance being available if traveling to amber or red listed countries. Do you agree that Koh Samui and Phuket rely heavily on exactly these people and therefore it's going to be difficult for anyone to come at all?
So the UK, we understand, has got a sort of a traffic light system, and Thailand is included in countries which are listed as amber at the moment, that they're saying we recommend you don't go there at the moment. So I suppose he's asking, can we survive without UK tourists?
I think tourists from the UK will come because, again, who wants to be in the UK and have a rainy day every other day? So I think you will have UK people traveling, but I think the bigger issue will be the quarantine on the other side, the practicality. Right now, if you would travel back from Thailand to the UK, you would have a 10-day quarantine. I think that's probably more prolific. But as any other things, if you have retirees, you have older people traveling, or people with long summer holidays, we can already see, Thai Airways also is pioneering flights from Europe in July, which are going to have 4 flights coming from London, from Paris, from Copenhagen, and also from Frankfurt as well. And London is within that, so they feel there is a market for it.
And Thai Airways will actually have any planes at that stage, but that's another thing we'll have to find out.
Got to get them in the air, Tim.
Martin P says, which categories of tourists should the Thai government encourage to travel here in the future? Do they want tourism to look the same as pre-COVID? Can they use the visa system to achieve a particular goal? So there's always been this search, Bill, over the past couple of years for better quality tourists, whatever that means. The visa system doesn't really sift one particular type of tourist out from another. There isn't a sort of a dollar value on the visas at the moment. What do you think is going to happen? Any changes to the tourist visas?
Should there be? I mean, yes, you have countries like Bhutan, which are minuscule in terms of tourism profiles, where they limit access as well. But certainly in a country like Thailand, where you have over 1 million hotel rooms, so is there a way to filter out business? There'll be a natural culling of the herd in terms of that. Certainly less people are going to be traveling as well. But Thailand simply is too big with its tourism industry to say we're going to start denying people at the end of the day. The visa on arrival system to implement wider market growth, certainly that's going to be in place. But I think it's not logical to say let's start going after just quality at this point, because at the end of the day, people have to eat. And these hotel rooms have to be filled.
Yeah, and Thailand's been very successful to allow tourists from all sorts of walks of life, from all sorts of countries to come here. You walk around some of the international tourist areas and you can get international food So I think that internationalism of Thai's tourism offerings and its opportunity for the backpackers, the mass tourists, the high-end tourists, I think there's still going to be something for everyone.
And I think the main thing is it's not really up to immigration to dictate the economic growth of the country at the end of the day. I think one thing that Thailand does need is a long-term tourism planning process. All other destinations to plan for the future as you do in Singapore or Hong Kong and be more pragmatic in that. But that's not immigration's job. That's a much higher government calling.
You got late bloomer abroad.
Since the reopening plans set around Phuket and the Sandbox, of course, if it opens up by July, is there any sense of when Chiang Mai may open as well? But I mean, Tim, there is a plan for the Sandbox for Chiang Mai.
Well, they're going to sort of roll out these sandboxes to different areas in the country. The tourism areas are going to be the first because they've been the most heavily economically impacted. Phuket is designed to be the first sandbox area. It's meant to happen on July the 1st. I've continually said over the past couple of months that that's just not going to happen, but you probably disagree with me.
I absolutely disagree. I think Phuket will open within the month of July. I really do believe that.
This is July the 1st, they're saying.
Within the month of July. Let's say within the month of July.
October.
But I think more important is that we are going to see other locations. Phuket as an island can control the borders in terms of that, and I think that's why it's suited. Chiang Mai with overland traffic, I think it presents more logistics to a sandbox model as well. So I think you have to get one place at a time and move through the markets.
John Clark says, what is everything someone that has never flown international before needs to do ahead of time and needs in their hands to travel to Thailand, specifically Pattaya, this October or November? Okay, so this John apparently has never flown in a plane, and he wants to know what he's going to have to bring. We don't know at the moment what paperwork is going to be required to come back to Thailand.
Well, I suggest having an airline ticket. That's probably a good thing, and a passport. These two things, and perhaps some money. I think these three elemental things. Certainly, in terms of doing that, you need to check with the regulations once you start traveling. Anybody who's planning a trip abroad now, there are going to be new guidelines. Contact your airline early. Understand what is needed from that, because again, they will be turning people back from the airport who don't have the right documentation. So don't wait till the last minute.
The vaccine passports will probably be a thing. Also, there could be issues of insurance that will be required to come to Thailand. We would suggest probably the first port of call, especially if you're new to international travel, is contact your Thai embassy in your country. They'll know all the regulations about citizens from your country going to Thailand.
And your airline at the end of the day. But plan and allow time to get your documents in order.
Indrajit has a question.
Once Thailand reopens for tourists, whenever that is, how different will the experience be compared to pre-COVID times? Tim, same or
I think
different?
Things are going to be different. I mean, Thailand's still going to be a magical place to come to. It's going to have the temples, the great beaches, the trekking, all the things that, and the shopping around Bangkok. But I think we're going to see wearing a face mask is going to be something that we're going to see culturally, certainly around Asia and Thailand, is something that's going to be ongoing, whether it's required legally or not. I think there will be perhaps fewer tour opportunities because I think a lot of the tour guides and the tour companies have closed up, and it'll take a while for them to re-establish. And it'll depend on the demand as to how things restructure themselves. A lot of hotels will be closed, but then a lot of new ones may open, and there's going to be some new owners. We really don't know.
I think one thing is for certain people are going to want outdoor locations. They're going to want resort destinations. They're going to feel that they're not confined in a big box hotel. So I think you are going to have more people go into smaller experiences, renting villas, traveling with friends and family. I think one of the biggest pent-up demands are people who want to be reunited with family members. And we see a lot of people saying we want to come to Thailand with our families and meet because it's a centralized location in terms of that. So I think those values will be restored. But certainly it's not going to be necessarily urban tourism to begin with. It's going to be resort-led.
Sure. And Thailand has got plenty of great outdoor locations, so that's a positive. Happy says, I wonder if they will have full moon parties back to 20,000 people attending. What are your thoughts? I'm guessing maybe in the future 3,000 people. These are the full moon parties held monthly, obviously, at Phangan in the Gulf of Thailand.
It's a big demand generator. Will they be back in time? in time. I mean, we're already seeing in the U.S. we're seeing big sporting events come back and everything else. So we will see these type of events, and it is a lifeblood of a lot of people for tourism within that sector as well. So will it come back? Might not come back this year, but it will come back.
Koh Phangan really became developed as a tourist location on the back of the full moon parties. But having said that, since then it's sort of become a bit of a yoga retreat location and got some nice high-end resorts as well. So it's diversified beyond just the full moon.
And for
parties.
Koh Samui, it's the full moon party traffic is very important to Koh Samui as well for its tourism industry.
Okay, we might go to the last one, Gizmo in Asia.
Gizmo. Where are these tourists coming from? Since Thailand has many countries, is on many countries' lists, places not to fly to. I think in terms of that, that's kind of a confusing question because what tourists? Right now there are not any tourists. There is a few domestic tourists coming, and there's a few people doing quarantine, but there are not tourists.
Which countries are going to lead the way to start tourism again in Thailand?
Countries that have been vaccinated. That's why we think that Europe, certainly Scandinavia, Western Europe, this will lead that. Right now we've seen the issues in Singapore. Common thought 6 months ago was that Singapore, Hong Kong, these would lead the return, but as we're seeing right now with outbreaks there, it's probably going to be the countries where they have a high vaccination rate. Even North America potentially coming to Thailand, high vaccination rate, good potential markets.
I'd say the situation will remain very fluid. The vaccinations will kick in better in some countries than others. There will be flare-ups, there will be travel bubbles. It's going to be a very dynamic and fluid situation. I don't think there's going to be a single date where suddenly the clouds part and the sun comes out and everything's back to normal again.
So that'd be the mark of the beast. That would be apparently,
yes.
Which we talked about earlier this week as well.
I think it's going to be a very slow, gradual situation. It's quite exciting in some ways as to the new opportunities that are going to grow from all this, and how different countries and different tour operators, different hotel operators will emerge from this. Interesting times.
I think one thing I am optimistic about, we've seen it in countries which are reopening now. There is a desire to travel, and we're seeing people. I think there will be a bounce. When that bounce comes, we don't really know, but certainly there will be a huge bounce of people wanting to travel again. Sure.
So, Bill Barnett, thank you very much. Have a lovely weekend.
Thanks, Tim. It's been a good week, and we're looking forward to many interesting things next week. I think a lot of exciting things in the air, and every day it changes.
Every day, always interesting news here in Thailand. And thank you very much to Jay for pressing the buttons. Noticed you got a haircut that hasn't gone unnoticed.
And he's got the plant as well. This is our
we've got
our tiger jungle.
Oh, by the way,
the tiger roars,
for the
right?
people who are complaining about the bits of paint that we've touched up the bits of paint yesterday. Jay spent about 8 hours just retouching little bits of paint. So we've done that, and we've got new photos and some new bits to the set arriving as we go. But thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a fantastic weekend. And from everybody here at Good Morning Thailand, goodbye.
Brilliant.